In the book of Haggai, there's some words that are intriguing, I believe, for our day. These words are repeated over in the book of Hebrews. It says in Haggai chapter 2, starting in verse 6, "For this is what Yahweh Sabaoth says. It won't be long before one more time I will shake the heavens and the earth, the sea and the dry land. I will shake all the nations, so the treasures of all the nations will flow in, and I will fill this house with glory." A great shaking going on. Very, if there's anything that we can, I think we can maybe describe these days at, is the words of Elvis Presley. There's a whole lot of shaking going on.
That's Jerry Lee Lewis.
Oh, Jerry Lee Lewis. Okay, well, that was a little before my time. So
Elvis just personified it, but Jerry Lee think about it.
Okay, so I was half right that Elvis did do the song at some point, but he also did Amazing Grace. But that's another subject. Barry, this thing of shaking, there's we look at all that's going on in the world. I just talked to Hanok. There's more rockets going into Israel. There's 3 today into the northern Israel. We have ships in the Middle East that they said were out of control. Drone attacks. I mean, there's really nowhere that you can point to in the world that does not have some kind of shaking. But let's bring it back home. Let's take it from all the things that are going on in the far reaches of the world, and come back to something that I think is relevant today. I'm seeing happening before my eyes. I think you're going to agree with this, that there is a shaking of relationships.
Yes.
That the Almighty Himself, I personally believe, there's a lot of things that are attributed to the enemy to Hasatan, that He's sitting back going, I don't have anything to do with that. Why are you blaming me?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to discerning what is from the enemy and discerning what is from the Father is extremely important. I mean, for Noah to stand there and pray against the rain that's coming in would have been pretty futile in that day, wouldn't it?
It would, yes.
Yeah, and instead he was supposed to build the ark. He had to see that what was coming on the horizon. Hasatan was not, he wasn't involved in that. It was the Creator Himself that was bringing that flood. And so discerning in our day what is from the Father and what is from the enemy is crucial. And one of the things that I see being shaken today is relationships. Relationships that we may have one time thought were very stable, but in the end, we find are, to use a word I think that you used in your prayer before we started, toxic. And is this something that you're seeing today?
I am a little bit, and I'm beginning to see it. As you were talking, Mike, I'm about the shaking that's going on. When the foundations are shaken that we had depended upon.
Psalm 11.
There is a sifting action, a proving action that starts taking place where things that maybe we thought were truth
mm-hmm.
or are not actual scriptural dependable truth. And so those things get shaken out from under our feet. Misunderstanding a text that you get into a given situation that is problematic, and your go-to response is to quote a particular verse. Well, if you misunderstand the verse and you're counting on the verse to be your stability, your truth foundation, and it's not, it's unsettling. Some people will immediately quote, well, he said he'll never put more on us than what we can bear. But that has to be balanced out with many are the afflictions of the righteous.
Mm-hmm.
And in this world, you will have tribulation. Be of good cheer, I've overcome the world. I mean, there's a balance. There is a pie in the sky mentality that some have. All that being said, the shaking that is going on has the effect of testing, improving us. Keefa said as much, not to be alarmed at the fiery trial that is to try, use those some strange thing has happened to you, that this trials for the perfection of your belief. Russell said I was 3 times I was shipwrecked, 14 days I was out in the middle of nowhere. You know, I've been in the deep, I've been in perils of robbers and perils of false brethren. What a terrible place to be. There are people that are going to be proven unreliable, unfaithful, and they're going to be proven that when opposition and hardship comes, you can't trust them, mm-hmm. because they're going to lash out at anything and anyone that they believe can be blamed for their given situation. Why should I blame myself? Why should I take responsibility when it can be someone else's fault?
Yeah.
You know, never take the blame that someone else can shoulder for you, right? Mm-hmm. So it is said. So I think we need to be prepared for our own testing, but also be willing to allow people around us to go through their testing. You pray for them, you support them, you encourage them, you help them where you can. You make sacrifices for people. But when they turn on you and bare their teeth and start to bite and devour you, they've just been revealed at who they are in their core. Can they be forgiven? Yes. Can they be trusted after they've been forgiven? That remains to be seen. Probably not. It's hard for me to trust somebody when they got their teeth on.
Yeah, the kiss of Esau. Yeah, and that's the kiss of Esau. That word there is about the teeth that were that Esau came to Yaakov with his teeth. He was going to bite him in the neck. Basically, you know, he was seeking to kill him if he could. There's a verse. It's actually a quote from Micah chapter 7 verse 6. It's in the book of Matthew, and it says, "Don't suppose I have come to bring peace to the land. It is not peace I have come to bring, but a sword." Now that's totally opposed to most Christian thinking today. That everything about Jesus, or you know, we would refer to Yeshua, everything's about peace and harmony and lovey-dovey and grace and all of these things. But the verse is very clear. It says, for I have come to set, I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, so that a man's enemies will be the members of his own household.
Yeah.
Talk about a shaking. And I'm seeing this in these days more than I have. I won't say more, but the intensity of testing of relationships, I think, has gone to a new level in our day. That we're going to be tested in our relationships with each other. And those relationships, that testing about our relationships with each other is ultimately about the test of our relationship with the Father. That he uses things on this earth to reveal spiritual things. You know, Shaul would say, first the natural, then the spiritual. So if we see this testing of earthly relationships, should we not also consider that we're going to be seeing in the near future testing of the spiritual relationships?
It's very possible, as you're describing, Mike. There are still pulpiteers promoting the idea of uber blessing. You're blessed, you're increased, you can expect a windfall in a time of trouble. Then there's the side that there's going to be a political shift. I just saw something came up on my YouTube feed yesterday. A guy is promoting that August 20th of this year that President Trump is going to be back in the White House. All of these grandiose prophecies about how what is current is going to fall apart and fall away, and what has been is going to come back, and everything is going to be restored. And it's wide-eyed, wild-eyed encouragement for those that follow such things. But what happens, we may see something. I don't know. I don't claim to be that kind of a prophet. But Mike, what happens when people are banking on things and there's not the political answers that they're looking for, and disillusionment and fear finally sets in? And you quoted from Matthew, in Matthew 10, verse 21 and 22, a brother, your own brother shall deliver up brother to death, and a father his child. And children shall rise up against parents and shall put them to death. And you shall be hated by all for my name's sake. But he who shall have endured to the end shall be saved.
Yeah.
He then says, a taught one is not above his teacher, a servant above his master. It's not enough for the taught one to become like his teacher and a servant like his master. If they've called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more those of his household? Then he says, do not fear them, for whatever is covered shall be revealed, and whatever is hidden shall be made known. Yah is about to pull out I want to say litmus test. It's not litmus test, the assay equipment. And he is about to prove people's mettle and their worth. Are we going to be dependable? Look, I can't fix people who are toxic. If people are fruitless, if people are parasitic in their relationship approach, to where they're sucking life out of you for their own benefit, this has happened multiple times where people come promoting me to promote themselves. They'll announce all of the perceived gifts that they see that I may have in their estimation, and build them up as if, I'm some superstar. But what they're wanting is to ride whatever wave they can use me to create for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
When it doesn't happen to their expectation, then they bite and devour me. And if it's happened once, it's happened multiple times. Yeah. I can't fix those people. But I've also learned that when somebody comes inflating me, I know the guy in the mirror. And I don't believe my own press reports.
Yeah.
Because I know the real me. So let's keep our feet on the ground. When you recognize that there are people that are disingenuous, they're not what they claim to be, when the ugly is revealed, it's never for you to go sharing that and promoting that to anyone else. If Yah reveals a flaw in someone else to you, it's so you will intercede for them, not share their problem abroad. Having said that, you need to set your boundaries. We have to have boundaries around ourselves and our families. Sometimes the toxic relationship is within family relationships. Thankfully, I don't really have that issue. Thank you, Father. But many people do. And you have to draw a circle around those that you know that Yah has revealed that you can trust. Now, do you reject everybody? No, you love them. You pray for them. But Mike, you can't let everybody get their hands on you.
Yeah, the boundaries. You go back. Let's go back to you were saying about the pulpiteers today. Another verse that comes to mind is a great falling away. So could that great falling away be because of relationships that people have counted on? You're counting on the wrong relationships to get you through. So this is a time that testing of relationships is probably going to happen. And in the midst of that, we're going to find out who we can trust, who we can't trust. Years ago, it's been over 10 years ago now, we had a tornado go over our house. That was the easy part. It was the spiritual tornado that came after that, in which people that I thought I could trust, I found out really fast I couldn't, really fast. These prophets, in this week's Torah portion talks about the prophets and the dreamers, and even those that prophesy something or tell a dream about something, and it comes to pass, but in the end they're leading you away from the Torah. You're not to listen to them. So the YouTube pundits, YouTube is so cheap these days. I mean, this is I could come up with an analogy. I'm not going to, but it is so cheap in the information that's so-called information that's going out there. I saw something that I thought I'll really get in trouble on this one. Probably not from anybody listening, but what would it be like if all of these people that are talking about former President Trump, and this is not a political statement, what if all of these people had put as much energy into the return of Messiah as they have into the return of Trump?
Yeah.
Could the world be a little different if all of that energy of making Egypt great again, making Babylon great again, Trump is going to return. Maybe he was the first Trump and the last Trump. I don't know, but I'm not looking for the return of a politician. I'm looking for the return of a Messiah, because the relationship that I have walked in with him for well over 30 years now, I think it is, that relationship is always consistent on his part. Though there may be some problems with my consistency at times, I found the relationship with him to be consistent, trustworthy, and that he always has my best interest in mind. Let us not be surprised in this day when he takes people out of our lives, when all of a sudden relationships that you thought were stable fall apart. It may be because he knows the plans he has for you, plans of future and plans of hope. And the people that you've been hanging out with are not getting you where he wants you to go. So it may be a time that relationships are going to be severed. Relationships are going to be changing. You may find that there's new people being brought into your life, new circumstances being brought into your life that you never really, you hadn't thought about that. And all of a sudden, you wake up to kind of a different world and a different sphere of influence. Why? Because if you're moving forward in your relationship with Him in the spiritual realm, then the relationships that we have in this natural realm are going to morph from time to time. They're going to be changing as we walk along.
Mike, you and I were at Revive about a month or so ago, and in teaching the youth the first afternoon on, I guess it was Friday afternoon, Thursday afternoon.
Thursday, yeah.
You had me to share something that happened to me as a teenager. I had a cousin that was about 2 to 3 years older than me. That was, well, I mean, he lived close by. We were within whistling distance of each other, literally, and we spent a lot of time playing in the woods and down creeks and such as kids. As we got into our teen years, he was constantly in trouble, failing out of school, very, very apt to be of the party type mindset. And my mom looked at me when I was about 14, maybe close to 15 years of age, and asked me where I thought he would be in 5 years. And I said, probably in jail, maybe even dead. Because I saw the characters that he started to associate with. It was darker and darker versions of what he'd previously been aligned with. And Mom gave me some very wise words. She said, son, if you don't want to be where he's at in 5 years, you have to stop hanging with him now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't go up to him and say, my mom says I can't hang out with you anymore. I just began to weed myself away from him, and he went one direction and I've gone the other. Mom's words proved to be true. Within just a couple of years, he was in jail, running with friends, quote unquote, that ran when he needed them, left the cops to get him and not them. And I thought I could have been right in the middle of all of that.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, his life has never really amounted to anything. He never gone anywhere, accomplished anything of any merit. And I look at all the favor of God that has been heaped upon myself and my family. What wise words. I saw a relationship that was not only not going to bear fruit, but was going to bear evil fruit. And I had to take a step. We need to look at folks that are around us at times and say, where are they going?
Yeah.
Now, do I want to go on the same path that they're on? And we can also ask, is there any way I can righteously influence them to change their direction? Some people don't, they're not going to change their direction, but they're looking for partnership to go with themselves. So I look at folks and I see fruit bearing. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
A wise woman, when Laura and I were pastoring our first church, a wise woman gave me this analogy. She said, there are three groups of people that will come into your church. We can amend that to our congregations, to our homes, to our lives. She said, there are sheep, and the sheep you love, even though they can be contrary and hard to get along with, you love them.
And they bite.
There are goats. Goats can herd with the sheep, but they'll never really be a sheep. They will butt you. They will fight you. They will wear you out, but you tolerate them to the best of your ability. And then there are wolves. You must never tolerate a wolf, because he will destroy both goats and sheep, and he will turn on you as a shepherd. A wolf is sometimes it's wolves in sheep's clothing. Yeshua warned about. They can be difficult to discern at times, but once they are revealed, Mike, they have to be gotten rid of. You cannot tolerate them anywhere around anyone that you love and care about and are called to be responsible for. But you and I had talked previously, goats and sheep have their own issues, don't they?
Well, let's go back to the wolf. Let's go back to the wolf for just a moment, because that verse of a wolf in sheep's clothing, people think, okay, that wolf is trying to imitate a sheep. But no, a wolf in sheep's clothing is a wolf imitating a shepherd. Totally different way of looking at that.
Okay, explain that one.
Okay, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Okay, sheep don't wear sheep's clothing. Sheep wear sheep's skin. But when the shepherd receives a couple of things from sheep, one of those is in the shearing of the wool. A shepherd is allowed to make his clothing to keep him warm from the sheep's wool. So a wolf is a wolf that is trying to imitate a shepherd. But in the end, that wolf is still a wolf. And so discerning, and a sheep has a difficult time discerning the true shepherd from the wolf shepherd.
Interesting.
But a true shepherd will always know a shepherd from a wolf shepherd.
Yeah.
So sheep must learn to trust a true shepherd, even to the point of when a sheep comes and says, hey, look at this new shepherd I'm following. You need to be able to trust the true shepherd to put away the wolf shepherds. The other thing, sheep and goats. Now, we've had both in our life. We had more goats. We had a few sheep at one time, but a goat, and there's all through Scripture it talks about the separating of sheep and goats. They're going to live together, and it appears that the sheep and the goats will only be separated in the end by the shepherd himself, by Messiah himself. Okay, so yes, we need to learn to live amongst the goats, but understanding something about a goat is very, very crucial. If you put sheep and goats in an enclosure, you put a fence, I'm encoding something at the same time, you put a fence around the two. A sheep never wakes up trying to get out. Okay, a sheep just gets up, goes about their day, eats the grass, drinks the water, does all that stuff, does what sheep do. A goat, on the other hand, well, let me say it like this. A sheep respects the boundaries of the fence. Very important, scriptural principle. A sheep respects the boundaries of the fence. However, a goat wakes up with one thing on its mind. How do I get through that fence? And will do everything in its power all day long to get through that fence. If it ever finds a way to get out of the fence, you're going to have every single goat on the other side of the fence. You can take all the goats, put them back where they belong, and that goat will remember how to get out of that fence. But then what happens is the goat will then lead the sheep out of the boundaries of the fence. We're going to have to live with goats. And we're going to have to understand that goats will always be challenging the boundaries. But we must not follow them when they find a hole. So when a goat looks at the Torah, a goat's always looking for a way to get outside of it. Just on the other side. I mean, a goat won't always wander a long ways off. Sometimes they'll just get through the fence and stand on the other side. And here comes the sheep. So we need to be careful to not follow goats in our day, because they will lead you outside of the boundaries of the fence, which makes you more susceptible to the wolf.
Ah, good point.
See, the boundary, and this is shown in the tabernacle. The teaching on the tabernacle I love for numerous reasons. But there was around the outer court was that white curtain.
Uh-huh.
That white curtain was not just to be a blinder and a veil for those that are outside to look in, but it was to act like a protective wall around that which was inside. And so to a person who is not following the covenant, they could not enter in. That protective curtain was to keep them out. They were not allowed to go through that gate, which tradition calls the way. In fact, when Yeshua said, anyone that comes in any other way is to be thought of as a thief and a robber. Yeah. So if someone tried to dig up underneath the back side of the curtain to get up toward the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kodashim, the Holy of Holies, they were to be thought of as a sheep or as a thief, a robber, a wolf. The only entrance was through the way, and that was only available to those in covenant that were bringing their covenant offering to the altar. And when they stepped into that, they were stepping into the protection of the curtain around the tabernacle. A beautiful picture of our life today. And that's why when we're within the confines, okay, and that's a word that a lot of people wouldn't like, but the Torah has its confines. It has a boundary. It is a wall of protection to keep us, that keeps us in the covenant, which means we don't have to be fearful of those things that are happening outside of the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
When we're inside, he's got the outside. When we're outside, we might be on our own.
Yeah. As you're describing that, Mike, I'm thinking that there was an additional barrier that was placed between the presence of the Most High and the congregation. And that was the Levitical encampment that was around the perimeter, just outside that white linen wall.
Mm-hmm.
There for two purposes. One, they were there to prevent the people in the camp from running roughshod over the Shekinah inside the wall. Men like to trample the Shekinah, his presence. I've called them glory hounds, glory seekers. They're amazed for the spectacle of things. They're looking for a healing. They're looking for a prophetic word. They're looking for gold dust. They're looking for, shaking on the floor. They're looking for something that titillates and energizes and amazes them to prove the authenticity of Yah.
Yeah.
But they're also there to keep the presence, the divine manifested presence of the Father from breaking out in judgment against the camp. So they work both ways. The key element of the function of the Levitical priesthood was service to the king and intercession for the people. They did not appease Yah, they obeyed him.
Yeah.
They moved barefoot in his presence. They understood what it was. There was a need to be properly grounded. They taught the people the Torah. They rightly discerned the word and proclaimed and instructed that word to the people. But they also, in their acts of worship they were interceding in behalf of the people. Yah has faithfully always set up someone wherever Laura and I have lived to be an intercessor for us.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, it was a little old lady.
Yeah.
The precious older women that the Father has had crying out for us and for our family. I can never promote that enough, that there are people who intercede for us.
Oh.
What they are doing is that they are obeying Yah and they're covering us. It's time for us to return the favor and to pray for others. In regards to toxic relationships, Yah will institute and raise up Levitical functioning people in our behalf. We need to do the same for others. As much as we want others praying for us, we need to pray for others. Mike, we're not going to be comfortable with all that is revealed. And, you quoted at the beginning about the shaking. Hebrews 12, the one whose voice shook the earth then, now he's promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth, but also the heaven. And this yet once more makes clear the removal of what is shaken so that the unshaking matters might remain.
Yep.
We're receiving an unshakable kingdom, which means that everything that is not of that kingdom is going to be proved shakeable. So when it comes to toxic people, toxic doctrines, toxic congregations, toxic issues, toxic beliefs, when Yah reveals them for what they are, let them be sifted away so that when what you're standing on is unshakable, you know you can stand. Otherwise, he might shake the daylights out of us, as Mama used to promise. I'll jerk the living daylights out of you.
Whatever living daylights were, she was going to get rid of them.
Oh, you didn't want it, whatever it was.
Whatever it was. All right. Well, yes, he will shake everything that can be shaken. His kingdom can't be shaken.
That's true.
So when we stand within the boundaries of his kingdom, it doesn't matter what kind of shaking's going on around us. We're going to be stable. That's why he's called the rock and not the sand.
Amen. Amen. Folks, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully something said today will be of hope, encouragement, and wisdom for you. We love to read your responses, your emails in response. So please feel free to do so. And we look forward to seeing you again next week.
See you then.
Shalom.